Hey, good morning, scholars. Walter Bowne here. I want to give you an introduction to Romanticism. Now, I don't want you to think of Romanticism as Valentine's Day, being romantic, buying flowers, and writing verse to your lady love or your lady, whatever. This was a time period in the late 18th century into 19th century uh, that emphasized the individual. And it's the time period we're going to be spending quite a bit of time with in January, in February, into March, with the different writers, American writers, from really, it's really centered around 1850, even though that's late in the Romantic period. It really starts with Emerson's Nature. We can go back to Washington Irving, but really, Emerson's Nature in 1832 was the beginning of the flowering of Romanticism in America. And of course, it ended, as many things ended, in 1861 with the Civil War. All right, let's begin. A brief definition. All right, so it's an artistic and intellectual movement originating in Europe in the late 18th century, as I said, and it was emphasized by an interest in nature, emphasis on the individual's expression of emotion and imagination, departure from the attitudes and forms of classicism, which we'll talk about, and it was rebellion against established social rules and conventions. So, John Proctor is an example of someone who goes against the established rules and conventions. And we have, Dr. Frankenstein that you'll be reading next year, who's the epitome of the romantic hero, someone who goes against the establishment, the science community, working in isolation, which scientists weren't supposed to do, and he creates his own man like a god. All right, he is a god, and I created man. I created my nameless monster. He doesn't have a name. He's just Frankenstein's monster. All right, so the dates, as I said before, in England, it started in the late 18th century, and it began in France in 1789 with the French Revolution, and in Europe it ended with the death of Sir Walter Scott. But in America, of course, everything takes a little bit longer to cross the Atlantic, and it ended in 1861 in America with Fort Sumter. All right, here are some of the tenets. Write these down in your notes. These are the things that you just need to know these things. Number one, it was concerned with matters of the soul and heart and the innate goodness of humans. Hawthorne will break from this a little bit, but mostly romantics believed in the innate goodness. Whether you're talking about Thoreau, Emerson, William Cullen Bryant, Walt Whitman, they were concerned with matters of the soul and the heart and how humans were innately good. Innately good. They believed in the creative imagination, that imagination was more important than knowledge, as Albert Einstein says. Tenet number 2 or 3, these are out of order a little bit, love of travel and exotic locations. This will not come to play with Emerson and Thoreau because they wrote about Concord, Massachusetts. They didn't really travel too much at all, except Emerson. Thoreau did a little bit too, which we'll talk about. But for the most part, romantics love to travel, exotic locations, traveling to Europe, traveling to these different places. The next one, they emphasize feelings rather than facts. So we have Captain Kirk here, who's the epitome of the romantic hero. His counterpart, Dr. Spock, is the antithesis, and he's all logic, and Captain Kirk is all feeling. All right, and here we have, feelings, the different feelings, different emojis, sadness, happiness. Tenet number 4 or 5, the power of landscape and nature. Very, very important in Romanticism, as we'll see in Scarlet Letter, as we see in Emerson's writing when he writes his famous book, Nature, and of course, Walden by Thoreau. Romantics believed in or concentrated with the supernatural and the metaphysical. This is where Hawthorne really comes to play. And people like Edgar Allan Poe, he's writing in the Romantic period, very different from the other authors we've been studying, but very interested in the supernatural and metaphysical. to someone who's logic and Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson in the Age of Reason, this wouldn't make any sense. The idea of these kind of things. Another tenet is, of course, the idea of nonconformity, the renegade. We'll see many characters who are outside of society, whether it's Reverend Dimmesdale, whether it's John Proctor. All these different characters tend to be nonconformist. All right, Emerson will famously say, if you were to be a man, you must be a nonconformist. All right, so we love these type of renegade figures, like my boy Han Solo here, who I wanted to be when I was 8 years old. And I still kind of want to be Han Solo, because think of his name, Solo. I'm by myself. Han, man, kind of, I think that's John in German. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And of course, we have some various figures from our culture that are renegades, whether it's Easy Rider down here with the motorcycle riders, the hippies driving through the South are going to face some problems, of course. We got Sirius Black, he's a renegade. And of course, this guy here, I forget his name, Jack Sparrow. Romantics tend to be anti-materialistic. They don't care about owning things and buying things and things like that. So we have that, kind of idea running throughout in Romanticism. And this departs from the Age of Reason. And this is kind of backwards. I should have done Age of Reason first and then Romanticism. But in the Age of Reason, we have, I think, therefore I am, René Descartes. He says, truth can only be derived from the mind, reliance on science, logic, and reason. Think of Spock from Star Trek. So, what is truth? Who am I? In classical learning, it was structured, elegant, clear, delineated, traditional, formulaic. All right, so we have people like Franklin, Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry. These are all people who lived in the Age of Reason. And of course, we have in music, Mozart. Okay, so this is not just in literature, this is in the arts. So the arts, Romanticism, changed the way people used art, saw art. Mozart, very classical. And then, of course, in the Romantic period, we have Beethoven. Right? So if I get a chance, I will show you the difference between a Mozart and a Beethoven. In architecture, we also have various differences. This is classical architecture based on the Greco-Roman model. You go to Washington, you can see this because it was in the Age of Reason, and our founders saw enlightenment in ancient Rome and ancient Greece and saying, okay, we're going to have a republic, much like those mighty Athenians did in ancient Romans. All right, this is, I think this is in Budapest. That's the River Pest. That's the Danube, and that's Buda, and then the other side is Pest. But this is very romantic. This is actually Gothic. All right, so I will be spending a little bit more time on another. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and take care.